Welcome, everybody. We're here to talk today about the soft home business. I'm Jennifer Marks, editor-in-chief of Home Textiles Today, and I've got a great panel for you. And we are going to be talking about business trends, consumer trends, how companies use Supima's premium fibers, and what things look like for 2021. So let's meet our panel. Regan Iglesia is Chief Marketing Officer at WestPoint Home. WestPoint's roots stretch back to 1813 when one of its legacy companies began making woolen broadcloth. Today, the company produces bedding, bath, decorative accessories, and most recently, face masks. The licensed brands include Izod, Rachel Ashwell, Southern Tide, but the company has many of its own brands. A short list including Martex, Lady Pepperell, Velux, Grand Patrician, and Utica, to name a few. And Griffin Home is a more recent brand, a digitally native brand that uses nothing but Supima. Hi, Regan.
Hi, Jennifer. Great to be here. Thank you.
Great to have you. Richard Roman is president and CEO of Revman International. Rich founded the company in 1988 when American mills were the colossi of the industry, and Rich had a different idea. One about not owning manufacturing, but sourcing from the best manufacturers and focusing on licensed brands and brand development. Revman's portfolio is also bursting with brands, and to name just a few, Vera Wang, Ed by Ellen DeGeneres, Laura Ashley, Kenneth Cole, Nautica, Eddie Bauer, and one of the most recent brand launches is USA Pima Collection. Hi, Rich. Thanks for joining us.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
And last but certainly not least, Jason Thompson, who's brand development manager from Supima. Hoping I don't have to explain to this audience what Supima is, because this is the Supima Harvest Festival. And thank you so much, Jason, for having us on to talk about home as part of this event.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm really happy to be here with this great panel.
Okay, so let's get going. So I think let's start with trends. What was happening with better, best brands and products pre-COVID, and how has that evolved over the last few months? And Rich, I'm going to throw that one to you first.
Okay. Well, pre-COVID, it seems to me that things were much more promotional pre-COVID. The pricing was more dominant in terms of the consumer. But now with people at home, staying more time at home, the home means much more to them. I think quality is more important. Performance of the product is more important. The attributes that the product has is very critical. So the easy care factor is important, but also the breathability factor, the softness of the product. In towels, for example, quick dry is important, and better fabrics, and also new constructions that keep you cooler, keep you warmer. Again, performance is a very important aspect of what the consumer chooses today. Mm-hmm. And since they're shopping online, they get to read a lot more about the attributes.
True. Ryan, what are you seeing at WestPoint?
Well, pre-COVID, I think there was a lot that, for us, that was centered around sustainability. The last market that we had in person, there was a lot of things with, recycled polyester, and we put a big emphasis on that. And I agree a lot with what Rich said. Post-COVID, it's been about, the attributes and the quality. And, we've been working on collections with, antimicrobial properties. So that's been something that we think a lot of customers have pivoted to in a big way and really quickly, because the online business really just ran away with it. And, we just saw lots of sellout on products, a couple of months after that all really started to impact everybody around the country. But sustainability is still important, and health and wellness kind of really took center stage for us as the pandemic kind of increased across the country, and but quality and attributes became really, really important. We did see a little bit also of, from a creative space perspective, like people want, they've been in their homes for so long and not going anywhere that they wanted to create more creative spaces. So we saw a little bit of design really come through, like more playful design come through in terms of what they were looking for in bedding and sheets.
Interesting. And I'm curious for both of you, when did you really start to see things take off in terms of COVID impact? I know, from what we were hearing just in the general business press, in the immediate moment, consumers were snapping up toilet paper, paper towels, hand wipes, et cetera, et cetera. Then they started buying, crock pots and cooking things. When did you start to see things taking off in soft home, and which categories took off first?
Well, first of all, we had a lot of store closures. So as the stores closed, the people were compelled to go online, many for the first time. And they were interested in the necessities at first, your basic bedding and towels. And as Regan said earlier, I think they then began to look at their environment, wanted to change their environment. They wanted to spruce things up, and they started to buy better quality, more fashion-oriented items. All our designer brands are up online for the year dramatically, because each one is a lifestyle, and there's no two customers that are exactly alike. So what we try to do is have something for everyone, be it contemporary, traditional, coastal, whatever region that they're in, whatever decor that they have based on their architecture of their home, we like to offer it. So that's really important for us.
So when you're saying it started with bedding, was it mainly sort of a chic focus initially and then moved into fashion bedding?
I think it was basically, basic sheets and like a lot of solid colors. Or solid color is a lot bigger than it had been. It's always been a big category, but solids and extra sheets, extra pillowcases are very, very positive in terms of the growth after COVID, and a lot of towel business as well. Can't hardly keep it in stock, actually.
Really?
Yeah, we saw a lot of towels too, Jennifer. I mean, sell out, retailer after retailer. I think a lot of the things that were sort of bacteria prone, in towels was like a big one. And again, like Rich said, basic sheets, solid color, a lot of that. We kind of saw a lot of it really just spike immediately and throughout April, May with e-com sales. But like he said, I mean, there were so many stores that were just shuttered for a while. But that just reaffirmed everything that was happening online. Once the stores opened up again, same categories really started to take off. Towels, sheets, definitely started there.
So we're also seeing an increase in what we call our extended product categories, like throws, blankets, decorative pillows, outdoor decorative pillows, indoor, outdoor decorative pillows. Product accessorization is very important.
Okay. And Jason, in terms of the kinds of conversations you have with your clients who are using Supima fibers, I mean, how did those change and evolve as everything was shifting around in the industry and very uncertain during the first half of this year?
Right. To mirror what's been said by these gentlemen, we saw similar things heading into the end of 2019 and 2020. A lot of the meetings I was having or the talks I was engaged in was a lot around verification, traceability, and those sort of things, educating on the origin of fibers, these sort of things that gives a point of differentiation, and was in line with the sustainability messaging that was mentioned earlier. As the shift happened really in March, there was more towards the storytelling and the attributes of the cotton, back to the basics, as has been mentioned here. Sustainability was very important still, but really what we were seeing was an increase in the amount of requests we were getting for licensing And we had a lot of first time spinning mills, et cetera, coming to us and saying, we want to use Supima. And we saw really an uptick in the demand for more premium products, as we did in apparel. And it was and it was around those basics. It was around obviously the work from home attire, which was a little more in knitwear, which Supima performs pretty well in, and then in towels and sheeting. And the conversations I've had now with a lot of the mills going forward is that their business is booked solid. A lot of it is distribution and can we get the goods in order to meet the demand. And we had some pricing fluctuations. Prior to COVID, of course, Pima was at historical lows already due to some of the complications with the trade war, et cetera, that was affecting cotton, as we talked about. And then heading into the COVID season, the pricing sort of just stayed where it was. So we had a lot of mills coming into and a lot of brands coming into using Supima for the first time because they were getting it at such low pricing, so they were trying it. Now we're seeing an uptick in pricing again, and some of the conversations we were a little cautionary, saying you're not going to keep this price for a long time. So if you're going to be using Supima and you're forecasting it out for more than the next 6 months, you should expect to see price increases, and those are hitting now. So, but the demand and the exports haven't gone down. In fact, they've gone up year over year. So the pricing is increasing, and it's still being accepted, which means that a lot of brands and retailers have made the commitment towards Supima.
Okay. Rich, you mentioned earlier the fact that the consumer shifted more toward quality. What do you think is driving that? Because I would think logically, right, you might assume with all the disruption to employment that happened with COVID, that people might be more promotionally focused. What do you think is driving that consumer interest in quality and taking a closer look at that?
Well, it's a good question. I think, first of all, there's still a lot of promotional goods out there. So there's an ample amount of product that people can buy that are affordable, and they're less concerned about quality if they're in a certain economic situation. But I think people are now not spending money on restaurants. They're not spending money on travel. They're turning their attention inward to their home. And they want to make that home that's literally now with COVID a sanctuary. Like we've always said, your home is your sanctuary, but it's literally your sanctuary now. And I think they want to have the better stuff and to enjoy the time that they're spending in the home. They're spending more time at home in the house than ever before. And I speak for myself. I'm at home a lot more than I've ever been in the last 30 years. So you want to make your environment as pleasant and as quality as possible.
And Regan, you also talked about the sustainability factor, which I have to confess, in the early going of the pandemic, I thought sustainability was probably going to go out the window, and that I wasn't sure consumers might still be interested in it. I wasn't sure if the retail accounts still will be, but they seem to be marching, sustainability gains seem to be marching hand in hand in tandem with the focus on home, right?
Yeah, I think it took a little time to catch up, because you're right. When it sort of shifted to this health and wellness, we were a little concerned, like what's going to happen with sustainability. But I think that, consumers, like we've been talking about quality, they want products that are going to perform, and, they're willing to pay more for it if they've got attributes that help them perform better. And, I think there's so much also talk during this year about the environment that, I think there's no way it could have possibly just disappeared. So we do see a lot of people looking at health and wellness and sustainability sort of like equal now, as they're looking at their assortments going into next year. And they're both really, really important. So.
It's interesting you talk about the environment. I think one of the things that probably surprised all of us in the early going, right, was how quickly skies cleared up in major cities. You were seeing what dolphins swimming in the canals of Venice. I think it was such a stark impact about what we as consumers and human beings have on the environment, and how much control we really have if we want to do something about that. Jason, I also thought it was interesting that you said in a lot of the conversations you've been having this year with new users, that sustainability is also a factor for them.
It is, and it's being driven a lot by the marketing, and also the brands that are asking for it. So you're basically seeing a lot of licensed cotton or quote unquote certified cotton being requested. There's obviously an increase for demand in BCI from other areas other than where the bulk of it was coming from China previously. So we started to see more, requests for information on the actual sustainability aspects of the cotton. And that leads us into longer discussions because Supima obviously takes a more nuanced approach to those questions. We're not a certification body. We don't, sort of just give you a check mark and give you a bright seal. We actually have these conversations and see what the brands and mills are looking for from an information standpoint and what's the story they want to tell. It does seem very important still. And it's being relayed to the consumer as both a point of differentiation on the shelf and also one that I think the consumer is looking for going forward as they are the ones shopping online. And it's like, well, if I'm going to be doing all this online shopping, then I want something that I know is also quality and good for the wholeness of the environment. I think that goes hand in hand with product now. It has to be part of the story. So, we've done a couple things. We've tried to up the amount of BCI Supima heading into 2021. That's something that I'm working on directly. So we've become an implementing partner for BCI with the goal of increasing the amount of BCI Supima available. Because we think that trend is going to continue. We see more brands signing on to BCI, and we think that having that available is going to help our farmers and help our story on the whole.
Okay. And we've been talking about, you kind of touched on something, we've been talking about quality attributes. We keep bumping up against the fact that so much business has shifted to e-commerce. I'm just wondering, Regan, first, what you're are you learning anything from this big surge to e-commerce? Are there things that you're pulling out of this that might be able to translate back into the in-store environment in terms of marketing? What's coming out of all this year?
We were talking a little bit earlier before we started how incredible our e-com businesses are. And, we're seeing huge increases. And we think it's a super sticky category. I think it's really all in the planning. I think now, we've got a plan. We've got buyers that have planned all year already. They're like, I don't want to run out of stock. So that's a big part that I think the retailers are anxious to kind of get their planning and their thoughts together so that we can be prepared to honor that. But we also, we want to make sure all that inventory is there, but it's the content. I think that we're really getting a lot out of this go around. Sometimes the retailers, it's just the packaging. There might be minimal signage, but when you can tell the full story, particularly when you're talking about a product that's got, antimicrobial attributes, you got to tell the whole, there's a scientific aspect of it. There's what's really consumer friendly. And we've been building with Amazon, tons of A+ content pages for all of our ranges and all of our collections. And I think it's something that we want, that we can learn from and implement better at brick and mortar to get the customers educated. They're hungry for the information. They're reading the information now. We know it because they're buying better products, and that value equation on what they're getting and what they're paying, makes sense to them now. So I think we've gotten a lot out of this big surge on e-com because we're putting out all the information out there. It isn't just a few stack shots, some lifestyle shots. We're doing lots of video, tenfold video than what we normally do. And so that content aspect is really helping us drive the business even more. So where we put attention into that item or that category or that brand, that's where we see the increases online because of the increase in content.
Okay. And Rich, you're kind of in a unique situation because you have so many brands and you have individual brand planning relationships with most of those brands, correct?
Well, we do sell our product through their websites. I mean, Tommy Bahama, for example, is one of the brands that we sell on their website, and they do quite well with it. But again, we have 35 direct-to-consumer retailers, most of which buy all of our brands, and each one is a unique and different lifestyle. Content is most important. We have a team of content writers. We started that about 3 years ago. And again, as Regan was saying, really can express to the consumer easily and convey the benefits and the lifestyle and all the good positive reasons that they should be buying those products. Now, what can we learn from that? Well, we can learn that when we go back into the retail stores, and we've known this already, we're working hard on to have the label and the brand, but also to have all the various attributes and benefits that what's in that package, we can convey on that package what the benefits are. And that's really helping us in the retail stores. But the other aspect that we're working hard on is social media. That's really key. I mean, the days of advertising in national magazines really is, we'll still do that from time to time, but it really is not very effective. Social media is where it's at. That's what people are reading today. That the social media has the credibility, and we will continue to do that and invest more of our advertising monies that way.
So I'm curious because you guys have both expressed that you think e-commerce is going to be pretty sticky for the consumer. There's a lot of business that's not going to go back to store, or maybe they're going to go back to the store to pick it up, but they're going to do their shopping and ordering.
Well, here's an interesting thing, that you can do your comparative shopping online. Okay. So let's say somebody goes into one of the off-price retailers like Home Goods or Burlington or Ross, and they see a brand, they see it on their shelves at a good price. They can pick up their smartphone and go on a lot of different websites, and they're going to see maybe not the exact item, but they'll see something comparative, and they'll look at the value that they're getting. And so it acts in a way as a benefit to have a lot of product online for that off-price consumer. So that's kind of a unique thing that's developed. The comparative shopping availabilities through smart technology is more than ever before. So you can't hide. Consumers going to know what the value of an item is.
But in planning terms, because Regan, you mentioned there's a lot more. I mean, they've always planned year round, but their new inventory demands, right? If more of this stuff's going to be rolling through e-commerce, then that's a structural situation for the suppliers who have to drop ship it and keep up with that flow. Do you have a sense that retailers have a sense of what portion of that business is going to stay online, or are we still all figuring this out as we go?
I mean, I still think they're figuring it out, but they can definitely see where the big increases are by, classification category, like towels in general. I think the ones where there were maybe, replenishment programs, they're really thinking hard about that, about maybe I do need a little bit more if this trend continues on. And I think that's where the retailers got most impacted, because a lot of those replenishment programs, they would just be, small orders and flowing in throughout the year. And, when factories started shutting down around the world, that's where we really got impacted. So there's also a lot of drop-in programs that happen at a lot of different retailers. And so they kind of come and go. There's a lot of direct import, programs that we do. But I think those that have long-term replenishment programs, And these are usually like core programs to their business. We could own a whole towel wall or a whole sheet wall. And they're thinking really, really hard. They're not looking at gambling, that business away if they're out of stock. So I think they're putting a lot of focus on those core programs.
So where are we now with supply chain disruption? I mean, we had kind of the worst of all possible worlds in the spring, with retailers closing stores, canceling orders. China was closed and China was open, and India was closed. I mean,
well, we're not back to we're not back to normal. I mean, the supply chain is just not there right now. Like, it's not 100%. I think it's probably about 60% in India and Pakistan, and maybe and somewhat better in China, but they're getting there. But they canceled a lot of orders, plants closed. COVID is an international problem. It's not just in the United States. And there is a shortage of containers. There's a shortage of trucks running from plants to the port. There's goods that are sitting on the dock right now that they can't get containers for. So that's one of it's one of the issues that'll eventually be resolved, but we're running weeks late, for sure. But I do want to say one thing about the product that, in the planning. We spend a lot of money on extra planners for our online business, because it does take a lot more inventory. Yeah. And we have more inventory than we've ever had in the history of our company, mainly to cater to our online customer. Because if you're not in business, if you don't have the inventory, you're not in business online. So that's the downside. The good side is it's actually for us more predictable, because we have so many more customers that are direct to consumer customers that are carrying our products, that we can identify trends so much earlier. When you're selling, when the majority of our business was in brick and mortar doors, it's very fragmented because stores had a lot of exclusivities. So you may had one big store that carried one style, and if they're wrong and you planned wrong, you're stuck with the goods. You have a lot more ability to sell and liquidate product online than selling it off in stores. So we prefer having, if we're going to have more inventory, if we have to have more inventory, we prefer doing it with the online customer.
And Jason, I'm just wondering, just to pop back to supply chain for a minute, from your end, feeding raw material into the supply chain, how far away are we from being sort of back to normal or establishing a new normal in terms of
from terms of shipping cotton? I mean, we're still able to meet the demands and the orders that are out there. The supply chain that way is working okay. We're seeing a large increase year over year in exports, 138, 140% year over year. There was a lot of 2019 ending stocks that was sold off at the lower prices. There's been quite a big price jump now for new crop, and that is selling at a rate over last year as well. So we're meeting the demand from the raw material side. Again, the challenges are going to be getting the products made and back over in time, because of all the complications that was mentioned earlier, by Rich and Regan, getting the goods around countries like India, facing shutdowns, port closures, container availability. These are the things coming back this way that are causing disruption. And I would imagine that planning from the standpoint of the distributors and also the brands is getting a little more squeezed on, okay, what are the best key items that we need to get in, and let's focus on those and see where it goes from there. But we don't see a lot of disruption in the raw material side of it. We had a good harvest. We got good availability, a little less this year because some guys didn't plant based on price, but we expect it's all going to sell and get exported.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so then, I guess for Regan and Rich, we've got these ongoing disruptions. How long do you think they go on for? Are we that this point next year going to be settled down more or less, do you think?
Well, I would think so. I think, we were running around 4 weeks late. Now we're running a couple of weeks late. So it's getting there. There is improvement.
Yeah, and I think, we were definitely all affected, and like everyone's been saying, it was even beyond the manufacturing, but, all the delays at ports and fighting to get containers was a big issue. There's definitely been a big, huge surge in demand for cotton. So we are seeing that price increase start to eke in. And, but, I think it's definitely going to improve. It'll level out. We're in our final stages of planning for next year. And, we've got a great deal of optimism going into next year. We're having a great year this year. And part of that, like you said earlier, Jennifer, we did our face mask initiative, but our core business is really strong too. So we're going to watch it really, really closely, obviously through the, Q1 and see how things perform. But no, we're really optimistic.
Do you guys have a sense of what consumer segments in particular are most avidly shopping online, focused on home? My guess would be that it's mainly millennials who are home building, but I could be wrong on that. I mean, what kind of data are you getting back from your online operations?
Well, we have, again, we sell lifestyle. So our Eddie Bauer business, our Laura Ashley business, two very different brands from each other, are very, very good right now. We've had record years in both of those categories. But in general, in most of our other brands, more of a more solid color, more contemporary looking, cleaner lines seems to be what's working. And I would guess that would be more the younger customer.
Regan, what are you
Yeah, well, I think, and Rich said it earlier, I think we definitely see that surge with the young millennial consumer. And it's also because we're investing so much more on the social media front. So we know that's their sort of go-to place for information and content, and, where they shop even, they buy it right off the posts and the websites. So we definitely see that. I mean, we still have I think for us, because we do have a lot of legacy and heritage brands, we still have that, our strong, core customer that's still following us, that's still supporting us. But we're really seeing a nice boost with that young millennial consumer. We paid a lot more attention going into back to school, going into this year, and we had a lot of great success with that. Lots of solid color, lots of brighter colors as well. Also big lean in on more, feminine styles. We had a lot of, we cover both, from maybe a male collegiate look with like brands like Izod, Southern Tide, but we leaned in more on the feminine side. That's our core customer, but on a back to school side, we were definitely a little bit more male. So that really helped us out a lot going into the next year.
Okay. And you talked about social media. What kind of lessons are you drawing? Are they talking back to you? Are they giving you feedback that you're able to use in product development as you go forward?
Yeah, I mean, you get it all. I mean, if you enter into the space in this arena with this audience and they talk to you, and you have to respond quickly. And but yeah, we are getting a lot of learnings from it. So we do a lot of testing. It's a perfect place to do testing. Is certain types of creative, certain types of ads, certain types of products, certain pricing. We work with an agency that helps us find those audiences and test and see what works. And where we get a lot of conversion there, we keep putting more money in that same place. So, but yeah, we get huge amount of learnings from engaging in social media. And it's been a big year for us for social media, because as you know, we've like sort of relaunched a lot of our brands. Some of our brands were dormant. People are loving that we're bringing some of these back. And, there's a great heritage story to tell, as well as like what's new and updated about this brand. So we're putting a lot of emphasis on that consumer and this area of communication and engagement.
Okay. So let's talk about branded fibers and Supima in particular in branded products. When you're developing products, what's a trigger for saying this brand, this level of product needs to have Supima in it? What factors go into that consideration?
Well, we have a brand right now that we're selling online primarily now, USA Pima, although we have other retailers that will be supporting it when things get back to normal. And, that's 100% Pima cotton, and it's softer, it's naturally sustainable, doesn't take a lot of water so it's ecologically beneficial to grow Pima cotton. Um, it's softer, it's stronger, it's breathable. It has all these great natural benefits to it. And we try to convey that the best we can online in content, and also when we get it sold on into a retail store, the packaging will convey the same message.
So it's very much, I mean, USA Pima is in part of a kind of a domestic homegrown play in a marketing sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Grown in the USA, 100%.
And Regan, for when you guys are developing, I mean, you have a slew of brands, you both do, but what factors in saying this is something we need to put it Supima into?
About a year ago, a little over a year ago, we developed our Griffin brand. That's, direct to consumer. That's been really, really successful for us. And, we wanted to give that consumer, that audience we were targeting, all the right attributes, quality attributes. And again, everything that Rich is saying, the softness, the strength, the quality of it, and how great it is for the environment, the way it's grown, and that it's grown in America. We put that all into all those attributes into our Griffin brand. And we thought it was so important that we, across every collection in that brand, there's no other type of cotton that we use in our Griffin brand but Supima. So that's been really exciting for us. And since that was just targeted at one specific direct to consumer audience, we also created a collection for retail as well. We didn't want to intermingle the two. We wanted really distinct collections for the audiences that we were speaking to. So in our, our mother brand, our Martex brand, we put together a Supima collection, and we launched the towels last year. And with, great success, we ended up adding Supima sheets, Supima top of bed. So we are expanding on it, but people love the quality. We want to tell a quality story. We want to differentiate ourselves from what else is out there. There's tons of startups. I was really shocked. I was on Facebook the other day, and there was like 7 or 8 that popped up in my feed. And, with the way the algorithms work, since I look at that stuff, then more of that type of category pops up in my feed. But there was I think there was 2 or 3 I never even heard of. And so it's getting to be a real competitive, marketplace. And I think some of these, direct-to-consumer businesses have taken some of the market share. So we're just trying to cover all our bases. We have our own direct-to-consumer, and we have a retail program as well that embraces Supima across all the categories.
Mm-hmm. So Jason, in terms of working with brands to help them as they're marketing Supima, what are some of the things that you find they want to put forward? What are some of the messages? What kinds of information do they want from you to pass along to the end consumer?
Well, it's their specific conversations linked to what the brand's trying to accomplish when they do venture into using Supima. Sometimes it's educational. It's their first time using the cotton, and we need to educate them on just exactly what it is. They know the brand, they know the name, they know some of the attributes about it, but getting into the history, getting into why it is what it is. So we do our Supima 101s, for new brands. For established brands that use it, sometimes they just want to take the story a little deeper. They've started with, the basics, and you've heard Rich and Regan both talk about softness, strength, and color. I mean, those are the tenets of Supima, right? It always comes back to softness, strength, and color. And we also like to take it into beauty, form, and function. Really is something that we're looking for. When a Supima product is made, it's going to have a different feel, a different form, and a different function. That's going to be a little elevated. So the other thing you have to consider is the position in the marketplace. Is this going to be representing the Supima brand, where our farmers and our organization wants to see it per our licensing agreement? You're really licensing a brand, which both these gentlemen are familiar with. It's not a certification of cotton. You're licensing a trademark, and the trademark has, its position. It has its, its caveats. It has its things that go along with it. So we have to do education on that. Is it more of a sustainability angle? What do you want to talk about on that way? Is it more of just a quality angle? Is it the made in USA or grown in USA angle? And that's something Regan mentioned, startups. A lot of the requests that we're seeing over this COVID area from startups is not only do they want to use American grown cotton, they want to make it in America, which is interesting. Wow. Those are very tough conversations to have, and let them know, these gentlemen know the supply chain better than I do. But there is a demand, ever present that it is and small, but it is something that is being requested quite a bit. And also we're seeing more specificity where the cotton is from. We have California, New Mexico, West Texas, and Arizona. And sometimes you get a request that says, well, I only want it from California, and we have to take them through the complications and nuances of that too. It can be done, but do you want to own cotton all the way through the supply chain? So it's a fun job because every situation is different. The way that we approach it and how each brand wants to tell the story. And that's why we love what we do, because every time we see the story told, it's a little different. And we love brands and companies to put their own spin on it. So that's what we're here, as a support arm. We're here to help. And that's what we venture forward with.
But Supima also does its own consumer facing, just brand building. Certainly you're in some very high end glossy shelter books. How much of a consumer facing message are you driving through social media as a brand awareness?
It's increased a lot over the last, I would say, 7 years, and definitely over the last 5. When we reframed the logo, we rebranded and we took it to more of a consumer facing, even our website. It became a lot more about engaging the consumer at the end to educate them on what Supima is and get them a little more familiar with the brand. And we think that that's been very effective, because the requests for use have also driven, and our licensing has driven higher in the last 7 years, specifically the last 5. We've been, setting records for the amount of licensees we've brought on. So we do want to approach it from that standpoint. And you're familiar with the vehicles that we use, the major ones like the fashion design competition in New York, the Supima Design Lab in Europe. These are overall vehicles just to get more notoriety and more exposure to the brand, so that when it is used on a product and our licensees like Rich and Regan, engage with us, that it's something that is of value and something that they can see the difference in, and they're immediately, once they put the product on the shelf, they're seeing a reaction to it. So yeah, we do a lot of work on behalf of our growers and our organization, direct to consumer. And we want to continue to grow that. Our ad campaign has really evolved over the years. We used to feature product from licensees, but now we've really shifted gears into just telling a story through the brand. We think that we've gained enough notoriety and exposure from the brand that we can now make that shift and just have it be a Supima driven advertising campaign, which we think is going to help our licensees on differentiation on the shelf going forward.
Okay, so it's all become all about storytelling, right? And Rich, I'm going to start with you. How much is the story important today? How's the story shifted? I would think with e-commerce, there's a lot more framing of a brand's identity. How has that changed during COVID? And
well, I think, I don't know if I think there's more opportunities to frame a product because there's more attention to online business. You know, our online business basically has doubled. People are learning to shop for our products online. They like the experience. It's convenient and it's chock full of product knowledge. We also do a lot of work with influencers and bloggers who can really talk about the product and how it performs and what are the benefits that this product can give the consumer. So there's more opportunities than ever before to really get the message out.
And Reagan, you've spent the last couple of years revivifying some classic brands that had been laying dormant. How did you approach, because you built a story for each brand as you relaunched it, how did you approach that process?
You know, in so much of it, we wanted to tell a premium story. So like as it relates to Supima, that just strengthened the story that we were trying to tell. And we applied it in as many places as possible. But, you know, we're bringing some of these brands back that were in the 20s. And we have these amazing like archives of pattern design, marketing, advertising, and looking at all that. And thankfully, we didn't just take a brand to change it just to change it, but it kind of went back to its roots and we just updated it that would, you know, so that would be relevant to the consumers today.
Would you give us an example of one of them that you felt was, I mean, they all look great, but is there one that you think was like really just hot off the presses when you launched it?
Well, it was probably Martex. I mean, Martex has been around for a while. And, you know, we were doing a lot of private label business, but we really wanted to strengthen this brand that so many people know and love. And it was still really, really big, not dormant at all on the hospitality side. We did, you know, like lots of big programs, like with Marriott, for instance. And we wanted to take like all of that, you know, like awareness that consumers get from the hotels and bring it to retail. And, you know, we told a family story, we told a color story, we told some of these things that were so great about the brand, you know, even just 30 years ago. But we went all the way back into the early 1900s and sort of just revived it by updating it and kind of learning off of some of our successes in the past, you know, where we created names for different types of fabrications. We created some state-of-the-art like advertising. We were one of the first ones to advertise we were the first ones to advertise in Times Square, had that big giant billboard back there, and that was in the 90s. And but that was real exciting to like have that be a major focus. And I think one of the other well-loved ones was our Lady Pepperell brand that was born in the 1920s. And wow, it's so, flowers mean something to everybody. We just did it in our own way. And it's been a really powerful story. E-com is embracing it hugely. And I think it'd even be better now. It's just, we kind of got caught up in the pandemic and the delays of, you know, goods coming from overseas. And, but we're still going to be focusing on all these initiatives that we sort of put that plan together a couple of years ago, like you said.
Okay. So we've got just a couple of minutes left. I want everybody to pull out their crystal ball and put on their magician's hat and think about what does 2021 look like in terms of trends in home textiles? Rich, do you want to kick it off?
Well, we just had our first quarter update. Looks like we're going to be beating our budget. We have a much more aggressive budget for all of 2021. We feel fairly confident about it. Obviously, if there is another major lockdown, it'll affect the retail brick and mortar part of that business. It'll probably continue to help build the .com direct to consumer business. Let's hope we can have both. I'm being optimistic that stores will get back their fair share, but I also think that we've reached a new level with the .com customer, that they've learned to shop. They like the experience and will continue to do that. Will we have the same percentage of increases going forward? Probably not, but we've gone to a higher level. We've reached things that we plan to do 4 years from now. We've reached in terms of this year. So we may give back as a percentage, but I think we'll be able to maintain that business and also to grow that business.
Regan, can you give me a quick?
Yeah, similar for us. I mean, everything's looking outstanding for us. Looking into In the first quarter, I think one of the things that's going to be really big for us that we see that's still going to be really important is just, this sort of layer of protection, antimicrobial, antibacterial product. Even when we had the recent market and we spoke to even a lot of our suppliers as well, everybody's sort of pulling together something, whether ours happens to be permanent, there's a lot of topical ones out there. I think that's going to be driving a lot of business. And another nuance I think that's going to be important for our business is also the luxury sector. I think people are, they are fine with paying a little bit more. The intrinsic values built in, and when you use products like Supima, we're applying that to some of our luxury brands that we're launching. We launched one this past market and it was received really, really well. So I think that part of the business is also going to grow.
Okay. Well, Jason, it sounds like you're going to be very, very busy next year.
Yeah, that's music.
Better products coming up.
Yeah, that's music to our ears, of course, at Supima. We think that the exports are going to continue to trend year over year. I think the pricing's going to increase but level off at a reasonable level, and hopefully that kicks back to the farmer what they need, because that's the most important part of it, so that they keep growing it. Okay. And we would see demand increase in planting probably into the next year if that happens. So there's going to be more availability. Yeah.
Okay, well, and that wraps it up. I learned some things. I hope you did too. And thank you so much for joining us. And now we're heading back over to the general session.